He shook my hand after stealing 18 months of my life and smiled like he'd done me a favor. The line closed behind us with the soft click of celluloid and glass. Outside, rain ran in clean, indifferent streaks down the office tower's windows. Inside, Marcus Hale polished his reputation the way other men polished cufflinks, one careful, practiced motion that hid the dent beneath. He said, "We did what we had to, Clara. It was legal." He said it with the kind of authority that makes ordinary cruelty sound like prudence. Legal. The word hung in the air like a verdict. It did not undo my mother's hospital bills, the eviction notices, the small ordinary humiliations that had crept into our days while Marcus and his partners recalibrated the ledger to profit from disaster. It did not wake my brother Daniel from the ground. It did not resurrect the promise Marcus had made to our town, to our family, the promise of safety in exchange for their signatures. They signed, he smiled. We buried what remained. At 33, I had been a compliance officer, a dreary, noble sort of job. Read the fine print, find the cracks, keep the machine upright. I had believed in structures because they were supposed to protect people like my mother and Daniel. Steady, dependable, boring. When those structures betrayed me, I discovered two things. The first was that law could be a ladder for wolves. The second was that grief, managed and practical as I was, makes architects of ordinary people. My plan was not born in a moment of cinematic rage. It grew patient and precise like ivy. I catalogued everything Marcus had touched. I audited every contract he signed in the last 7 years. I burned through his philanthropy statements and his company's safety reports the way other women burn through cookbooks. Methodical, searching, hungry for a result that could be eaten and tasted and used to mend a wound. There were accomplices I never wanted, the tired typesetters who shipped the falsified reports, an anxious in-house counsel who had been paid too well to ask questions, and a whistleblower named Theo, who had been small and shaking when he first contacted me. Theo handed me a memory stick in the corner of a diner, wrapped in a napkin like contraband, and said, "I don't want to ruin anyone's life." He looked at me as if ruin and justice were the same things. "You don't have to want it," I said. "You just have to want what's true." He almost laughed. "That's not how people work." "You'd be surprised," I said. "Or you'd be surprised until you're not." Theo's documents were the key. Emails where a project manager joked about budgeting safety out, internal memos that misapplied engineering tolerances, and an invoice trail that led to a shell company Marcus used to funnel hush money. Each file added another brick to my case. Each brick made the distance between us narrower. I tunneled through his empire, carving out a way to the center with the blunt tools of bureaucracy. Summons, subpoenas, FOIA requests. I learned to wear patience like armor. There were nights that tasted of ash. I would spread the evidence across my kitchen table, marked up PDFs, printed emails, columns of numbers, and imagine every time Marcus had walked past a child's hand or a contractor's anxious note and chosen the ledger instead. I kept a small photograph of Daniel tucked beneath a sheaf of deposition records. It was a private shrine, a crooked tooth, a missing earring, a grin that made my chest ache. I could not bring him back. But I could make Marcus's nights thin and bright, with the same hunger I had known. The first twist came not from the papers, but from a man named Rafael Cortez, a county prosecutor with a reputation for thoroughness and an appetite for headlines. He called me once Marcus's name hit the press. Someone leaked a portion of my findings to a reporter and asked, politely, whether I was ready to testify. "Clara," he said, "I can make this theater." I met him in his office, watched him organize his pens with surgical concentration. "You want revenge?" he asked without preamble. "No," I said. "I want accountability." He nodded as if the two were synonyms. "They are similar at the end." We convened a committee of tired, efficient people and summoned Marcus. He came dressed in a tie that made him look younger than his age should allow, as if youth might excuse his choices. In courtrooms, men like Marcus are masters of diction. They fold culpability into corporate nouns and shrug with an expression that says, "I did what we all did." They are polite executioners. What they did was within the bounds, his defense counsel said, with the kind of measured certainty that is practiced before it's learned. Marcus took the stand and recited the company line like an actor delivering an aria. He said, "We prioritize differently. We misplace judgment. He looked at me once, just a fraction of a breath, and I saw the man who had once promised me a contract, a job, a future. I saw the ease with which a man can reframe betrayal as a business decision. The courtroom became a theater, where truth and performance sparred. My evidence was blunt and unassailable. Theo testified, voice small but firm. The engineer who had been ignored explained, with hands that trembled, how structural redundancies had been recalculated to marginalize safety margins. The hollow places of Marcus's empire were revealed in live testimony. It was, in the language of the newspapers, a reckoning, but consequence is never as neat as narrative. Marcus was convicted on charges that stripped him of his license and his position. He paid fines, his name unstitched from the banners of civic life. But the victory tasted like the mute, relentless logic of loss. Justice, deliberate statutory justice, could not stitch together Daniel's laugh or the 3 years that had been stolen from my mother's life as she worked double shifts to patch what Marcus had torn. There is a moment after revenge. Succeeds the inevitable quiet, where the landscape of your life looks suddenly too familiar and yet unfamiliar. I had imagined satisfaction as a clean, ascending arc. Instead, I found a canyon. My days, once full of plans and documentation, opened like a book whose last chapter had been read aloud. I had accomplished the thing I set out to do. The whole remained. The ledger had been corrected, but paper cannot raise the dead. Marcus sat in his cell as if in a glass case. He wrote letters seeking mercy, not for himself so much as for his legacy. In one I read months later, he said, "I miscalculated the measure of risk. I thought in models, not in people. I have paid. I hope that is enough." It was not enough. None of it was. The consequence of revenge, I learned, is the way it asks you to trade parts of yourself for a moment of retribution. I had buried my days in hearings and depositions. My friendships thinned under the stereoscopic light of obsession. Theo left town quietly after the trial, a ghost who had done the moral labor and then disappeared. My mother moved in with a cousin 3 towns over. She could not stand the reminders. The house where Daniel had once played remained exactly as he had left it, an artifact of a life stopped mid-gesture. I stood in it one winter evening and listened to the empty rooms return my own footsteps like an accusation, and yet there were small coronas of grace. Rafael Cortez wrote me once and thanked me for choosing to see the case through the brambles of bureaucracy. "You did something the law sometimes cannot," he said. "You made it human." It was not consolation. It was recognition. There were other families, neighbors, children who came forward and said quietly, "Because of you, we slept better." Their gratitude was a fragile, honest thing that mattered. In the end, revenge taught me about limits. It taught me that consequence travels 2 ways. It can topple the guilty, but it also asks for a toll. I had wanted to punish Marcus until there were no measures left to take. When the verdict came, I expected a vein of triumph. Instead, I found a question. What next? I answered it the way I had learned to answer anything practical, by rebuilding. I left the compliance department and started a small non-profit focused on structural safety advocacy. We trained local contractors, we audited municipal projects, we lobbied for clearer standards. It was imperfect. It was slow. It was, importantly, forward. I planted my days with tasks that could feed others, rather than prune a single man's legacy. At night, I sometimes dreamed of Marcus, of his smile, of the way he had leaned across a table and made legality into an excuse. In the dreams, I would stand at the window of our old house and watch a different life, one where Daniel was there to interrupt the silence with his laugh. I would wake with the photograph of him beneath my pillow and feel both consolation and an ache that no verdict could touch. Revenge had been a necessary bridge for me. It burned and I walked it. But what remained after the flames was not vindication alone, rather a choice. I could spend the rest of my life tending the ember of hatred, or I could take the ashes and build something. I choose now to build. People often ask afterward whether retribution ever tastes sweet. I tell them the truth. It tastes of many things: paper, coffee at midnight, the metallic tang of courthouse air. But sweetness is not among them. The only sweetness I have found is in repair, in the small, stubborn work of making systems less dangerous, of making promises mean what they say. That is a practical thing. It is not romantic. It is for me the most honest form of justice I have found. If this story moved you, don't let it fade. Share it with someone who's still waiting for justice, and if you believe truth deserves a voice, subscribe. More stories like this are coming.